This title is narrated with virtual voice, computer-generated narration for audiobooks. The Legend of Anne Bonny by Robert Q. Hoyt. 1. Anne stood holding a stump of candle in her uncle's cell the last night of his life. They embraced, and like a blind sculptor, she touched the landmarks of his face, tracing his looks into her memory. He kissed her forehead and smoothed her hair. "I am not forsaken," Fergus said in the brogue she loved. "The devil waits for Maynard, but sure the angels wait for me." He reached to the one shelf and fished a scrap of parchment from the Bible she had given him. "My last will and testament." In the darkening cell, she could just make it out. Gold doesn't care who owns it. When the guards pulled her away, his note was tight in her fist. Outside, she mounted her father's horse and let it walk her up the cobbled street and out of town, dragging the reins along the dusty road to the plantation, where the watchdogs and the stable boy greeted her. As Anne entered the parlor, Mammy Aggie came from the kitchen with cobbler and a jar of buttermilk. Anne stifled the retch that coiled in her stomach, felt her lip quiver, and waved away the treat. Dear Aggie set down the plate, spilled the buttermilk, rubbed the back of her hand against doleful eyes. Anne hugged the old woman, then sobbed in her arms. Later she dried her face with a napkin, bade Aggie good night, and trudged upstairs with a candle. On this wretched night, as always when he wasn't at sea with contraband, her father had drunk himself to stupor. His snore whistled as she passed his room. The night she spent in sorrow and a vain wait for sleep. Deep in the night, she threw open the casement window and leaned out. The lawn slanted down past thickets of Carolina yellow pine, past the slave quarters, to the narrow beach, the surf, the ocean. East and north across the sea was her uncle's beloved Ireland. Anne gazed that way a long time, and into the constellations of the skies that he would pass on his way to heaven. But her eyes grew heavy, and she drew them back from the sky and the sea, and up across the lawn to her room, cell-like in the gloom. Was Fergus sleepless and praying, or at peace? How could he be? Across the grey lawn was her mother's grave, and close by the knoll where as a child she had sat with Fergus on the ground, their arms locked around their knees, the sun warm on their backs. When he was home from Ireland, Uncle Fergus had taught her about God and his world, and man's place in it. When he was at the plantation, and not at one of his secret meetings, he often held her on his lap and spoke to her of kings and Catholics and rebellion, and taught her songs and rhymes and the melodies of Gregorian chant he had learned from the monks of St. Columbanus, the 7th century Celtic abbot. On sunny afternoons, they strolled the lawns and meadows. Sometimes he took her hands in his and swung her round and round until they were dizzy and staggered to the grass. Then they lay on their backs and found shapes and forms of animals among the clouds. Sometimes she snuggled into his arms, a skinny 8-year-old, and she touched his bony face, sunburned and gleaming under hair like hers that tangled over his brow to black, jutting eyebrows. Those blithesome days seemed 1,000 years ago as she sprawled on her bed. Close to dawn, Anne dozed, but a rooster crowed and jerked her awake. From the pitcher on her nightstand, she splashed water into the bowl, wet her fingertips, and rubbed her eyelids. Her shoulders sagged. She had a wooden feeling behind her eyes, and the new day seemed already old. She put on last night's riding jodhpurs, jacket and hat, and went downstairs, where Mammy Aggie had bacon and grits for her. But their rich fragrance nauseated her. She thanked Aggie anyway, and dragged out to the stable, helped the stable boy saddle the brown horse, and set off on the 3-mile ride.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.